Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
WMAL. 7:07 here on O'Connor and Company on this 10th day of December, and we are flying through this show, and it's going to get even busier from this point forward. At 7:35, we'll speak with the fine senator from the great Badger State of Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. How do you think he feels about all the fraud we're learning about in Obamacare and Medicare and Medicaid? 8:05, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who is trying to get a handle on the fraud out of Minnesota. And then at 8:35, Charles Billingsley, actor, part of the Kennedy Center's Christmas spectacular titled Noel, Jesus is Born. I want to keep reminding everyone that it is a bit of a unicorn moment for Jesus to be acknowledged at the Kennedy Center Christmas show. I thought it was like fir tree season or something. What? This is great, Julie. Apparently it's about the birth of a child.
Yes, apparently.
Joining us right now is the president of Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts. Kevin Roberts, how about that? Kennedy Center actually mentioning Jesus when they talk about Christmas.
It's like a parallel universe, man. We knew it was going to be America's golden age, but who could expect this in the first year?
Listen, I know that you watched keenly last night when the president sort of renewed his economic message there in Pennsylvania, and it's good timing going into the next year in the midterms. I do want to get to that, but quickly, you know, we have a pretty plugged-in audience. They know what's going on. They know what time it is. And they saw you and the Heritage Foundation go through a bit of a speed bump there and some turmoil, let's face it, several weeks ago. But I want to just take your temperature, see how things are going, and also point out you did something very rarely done here in Washington. You actually stepped forward and said, I was wrong and I made a mistake, and you know, that must have been hard for you.
Well, you know, it's a spiritually enriching time. Many of us, including many in your audience, know that this is the season of Advent before we get to Christmas, and so it's always good, I think, to lead with virtue. And the mistake that I made was not leading with ideas and policies for the future. And obviously personality and friends are important, but the key thing is that all is well. It is full speed ahead at the Heritage Foundation, where we are focused not just on what we can do to help with messaging and policies, heck, for the next week for our friends in Congress, but also for next fall, for 2028. But very importantly here, Larry and Julie, the American people are asking the question, now that the good guys are in office, and we see President Trump, for example, giving a fantastic speech on economics last night in Pennsylvania, what does it mean for America to be celebrating its 250th anniversary? History is very important. I obviously think so, given what I used to do. But what's really important for the American people is what the future is for them, and that is totally our focus.
Well, and to that end, I'm worried that some people are going to get the wrong message out of the Zohran Mamdani election. It's like, oh, affordability. Yeah, you're right. Things are too expensive. But that's because of the government. They've done that. So, I mean, what's the best idea for Republicans and conservatives, more importantly, going into the next year to address affordability but communicate how affordability is caused by the government, not solved by the government?
Well, let me just underscore the problem before I answer the question with the solution, and it is last night's. Sorry to do that to you. You knew that was coming. Last night's election in Miami, same thing. Democrat won for a few reasons. One of them is she did what Mamdani did, which is to diagnose the way the electorate wanted to hear it, problems of affordability. So, number one, let me caution conservatives, including a lot of friends who are well-intentioned when they say this. They don't want to even use the word affordability because it sounds like a word the left uses. Well, how about, for once, we co-opt some of their language that's politically popular? How about that? And to your great question, Larry, the solution is, you need to get the government out of the way. There is a tremendous series of regulations over the last decades that have caused housing prices to go up. Obviously, the Fed has something to do with that as well because of the cost of borrowing. Hopefully, we get some good news on that in the next day. But let me also say this. We have to understand that one of the social and economic impacts of having at least 11.5 million illegal aliens come into this country in 4.5 years is that there's far too much demand that there is supply for housing. So it's vital that the president do the following. He's got to continue to connect the dots, which he's fully capable of doing, of why the immigration is so bad for this country. It isn't just merely a social and cultural issue with assimilation. It's economic that working class families are feeling, not just in a housing crisis, but also when it comes to employment, especially for young American men.
You know, I'm curious your thoughts on immigration and some of the White House putting out these videos that are pretty provocative. I think they're hilarious. And, you know, I work with a lot of women. I work at the Independent Women's Forum, and there's sort of some disagreement among us women. Some of us think they're a little too provocative and maybe it's going to make people mad. Some people, and I'm sure you know the videos I'm talking about, right, where they're sort of pushing back on that entertainer. I don't even know her name. She's a singer who criticized the administration, and they took her song and put it to videos of people being arrested. That's right, Sabrina Carpenter. Thank you, Michael. You know, what are your thoughts on how the White House?
Just so you know, Kevin Roberts barely looks at videos on the internet. He's a very weird dude, I'll be honest.
Look, Michael had to remind me of Sabrina Carpenter's name.
There is somebody somewhere at Heritage in a comms office right now saying he doesn't know who Sabrina Carpenter is.
I know. I'm sorry, Kevin. But I mean, but you are paying attention to how the White House is handling this. What are your thoughts on that? Again, I think they're hilarious. I think they're fine, but people disagree with me. What's your position on this?
Julie, I'm going to report you to the FCC for asking me a pop culture question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We learned nothing.
He's never coming back.
Oh, you know that's not true. You know that's not true. I love it. Well, no, it's all kidding aside, it's an important question. I have no idea who the musician is. Of course, if any of my kids are listening, they're saying, "Why is Julie asking my dad questions about a singer?"
Not good. Not good.
If it isn't George Strait, he's got no idea. But I do know the videos. I do know the videos. Yeah. Look, I can understand why some people would say they're a little too edgy. I get that. But ultimately, two things. Number one, could we just lighten up as a society a little bit? I mean that, respectfully to others. But the second is, let's embrace and celebrate that we actually have a majority governing coalition in this country, in large part because Donald Trump is willing to mix it up in every respect. And I think that's something we've got to learn in the conservative movement.
If I could follow up on the response you just gave about the economy and affordability and all that, it has to do with young families because this really is a crisis. And conservatives, I think, have been slow on the uptake here. We like to say that the family is the building block of society and that we're very pro-family and even nuclear family, God forbid, maybe even a one-income family kind of thing. It is literally impossible right now. We've got people who are in their late 30s who have never purchased a home. What can conservatives do to be on the right side of that issue and maybe even push back on some of the big money corporate interests who might be part of the problem here?
Well, it's an excellent question. In fact, as we've been saying at Heritage most of this year, in a lot of ways that's the question because almost every public policy issue flows out of trying to solve for that problem. And just to underscore the great question, the average age for a first-time home buyer in this country is 39 or 40 years old. And there are a lot of decisions that go into that, including by individuals. But, that's almost double what it was in the 1960s because that corresponds to another trend, which is that you have to have two incomes, in some cases more than two incomes, in order to afford the cost of living in most American cities. And so what conservatives need to do, number one, is to talk about the ideal. And so we've got this huge research paper coming out. I know y'all live and die for Heritage research papers in January, but the real point is to plant a flag and say, while we don't yet have all of the policy solutions, we want the center right in this country, the policymakers, to be attempting to solve for this problem because the American people are telling us it's a problem. And to the heart of it, what we need to do is to make sure that the 11, 12, or 13 disincentives in federal policy, especially in quote-unquote safety net programs, toward marriage that disincentivize men and women getting married go away. But we're also really fond, to sum up here, Larry, of how we might be able to expand these Trump accounts into policies that incentivize marriage and even having children. We don't believe that government is the end-all, be-all solution, obviously, but we do believe as conservatives, not as libertarians, that it's really important we change this trend in the massive decline in the marriage and birth rates. Ultimately, that's going to be a social and cultural question, but policymakers have a role to play, and conservatives need to stop being so bashful in talking about the ideal.
He loves throwing shade at the libertarians. I like that. All right, Kevin Roberts, even though we have a lot in common, we'll leave it there. Always good to talk with you. Merry Christmas. And by the way, Kevin Roberts Show podcast has had a resurgence of popularity, downloads, lots of views on YouTube, 100,000 per episode.
Great.
I don't know how that happened, Kevin, but it seems to be doing well. So congratulations.
One Larry O'Connor who asks great questions. So
oh, that's right. I totally forgot that I'm the co-host of that Kevin Roberts Show now. All right. Well, people will subscribe.
Y'all are the best. Y'all are the best. Have a great Christmas.
Good to talk with you.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
A lot of keen observers of pop culture, unlike Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation, would recognize that the Ramones tend to have sort of a, let's call it libertarian, get out of my life, maybe even in some cases conservative sort of ethic. The Ramones, of course, the voice of the Gen X generation there in the late 80s into the 90s, sort of a cult band. And it turns out Joey Ramone of the Ramones was a big fan of Maria Bartiromo. Well, many of us of a certain age are big fans of Maria Bartiromo.
Yes.
What was her nickname back in the day? She was the something honey. I
can tell you what my husband calls her.
Sorry. Go ahead.
What man doesn't have a crush on Maria Bartiromo?
Well, exactly. Well, a lot of people don't know is that Joey Ramone actually wrote a song about her.
Really?
Listen to this. Cut 13. Maria told this story.
Joey Ramone started cold calling me. He was emailing me, and I always respond to viewers. And I was just a viewer named Joey. I didn't realize. And then over time, we were talking, and then we became friends. He was this huge rock singer, but people didn't realize that he was also an avid investor. And he used to call me and ask me all about stocks. And he called me once, and he said, Maria, I wrote a song about you. And I said, wow, are you serious? He said, come to CBGB's tomorrow night. I'll be getting up on stage at midnight. And I said, oh, my goodness, I'm on the air at 6 in the morning. There's absolutely no way I can be at CBGB's. And he said, send a crew tomorrow night to roll on it. And I said, okay, and I did.
This one's called Maria Bartiromo.
And when they came back with the tape, I couldn't believe it. There's Joey Ramone and the Ramones singing a song called Maria Bartiromo.
That's fantastic. The Money Honey, by the way, was her nickname.
That's it.
People really enjoyed waking up in the morning and turning on CNBC and seeing Maria tell them how much they made the day before.
I know so many men who have a crush on Maria Bartiromo. She's gorgeous.
It's a thing. So here's the song. This is Joey Ramone's. And I just love the idea. This is the great thing about New York, is that the Ramones will be playing CBGB and ask Maria Bartiromo to come down and hang out before going on CNBC the next day.
How much did we relate to that, though? I have a 6 a.m.
Yeah, sorry, can't do it.
Yeah.
6, are you kidding? Although she actually had to look good, so that means she had to show up and get in makeup. All right.
Exactly.
Here's what the song sounds like. Cut 14. She does have a very melodic name.
She does. Yeah, nobody would do that with Julie Gunlock.
Not so much. Well, different kind of song, I guess. How did she resist the temptation of having that be her theme song from that point forward for the rest of her career? Come on.
How has she not constantly told that story?
Yeah. Here's a little bit more of the story, by the way. Cut 15.
And I was so lucky to know Joey, and I regret not pulling an all-nighter that day to go out, see him sing my song, and then go to work, because unfortunately he died a few months later. Yeah. We found the lyrics that Joey wrote on little scraps of paper, the original lyrics, and I bought it at auction.
That's nice.
That is.
That's nice.
He died in 2001, so I thought this was a little bit earlier in the decade, actually, when well, there you go. That is really sad, really sad that she never got.
It's a sweet story, though. It's a great story.
And Joey Ramone is just so iconic, and
absolutely,
and that's kind of cool. Maybe someday, maybe they won't write a song about you. Maybe it'll be like the three of us, the Julie, Larry, Patrice song. Is that somewhat melodic? Can we do a team effort here? Who wants to write a song about it?
I think Heather has the best name for a
Heather
song.
absolutely
Heather
has
Hunter.
the best. Heather Hunter. All
right. It works.
We'll
Patrice Onwuko is a tough one, too, okay?
Yeah. That's true. O'Connor, and Gunlock. There's
Yeah,
nothing
it's tough.
very
Let's just go with
melodic.
Heather Hunter. Okay.
Or we could hire Maria Bartiromo.
Well, that's an idea.
We're all fired. It's 7:23.
Coming up, we're going to be talking to Senator Ron Johnson. He's having a hearing today on Obamacare and the ongoing subsidies fight. Be good to talk to him. Keep it here, 7:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Julie Gunlock is here, and that's really all anybody cares about, but I'll go through the rest of the show, too. It's 7:37. It's O'Connor and Company. I'm Larry O'Connor, by the way, as if anyone cares at this point, Julie. Also, joining us later in the program at 8:05, we'll check in with Dr. Oz, who was uncovering even more fraud and theft out of the Medicare-Medicaid program, not just what we're learning about Minnesota. And then at 8:35, Charles Billingsley, an actor in the Christmas spectacular at Kennedy Center called Noel, Jesus is Born. All right, Julie, let's get to it. We got to be on our best behavior. We have a senator
That's
here.
right.
You know, Senator, you used to work in the Senate all the time with one of those Midwest senators, and they're good.
I did. A couple of them.
They're very demanding. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, always good to talk to you, Senator. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, guys. I'm not very demanding at all.
No, you're not. That's where the humor is. You're one of the good guys. Listen, Senator Johnson, I know that everybody wants to talk about Obamacare and Affordable Care Act, and the Democrats are demanding 3 years of subsidies to prop up this failing system. You were warning back in 2010 when the original debate was going on about how this was unsustainable. It was going to ruin health insurance in this country, and it has. So it seems to me, before we start walking down this path of throwing more money at this thing, we should fix what's broken. Let's start with the fraud, and there's a hell of a lot of it there that's been uncovered.
Yeah, I think what we've uncovered with the Somali population in Minnesota in terms of Medicaid fraud, and a lot of Obamacare was Medicaid expansion. But then the GAO report, which, by the way, is a repeat of GAO investigation they did 10 years ago, right after Obamacare started up, where they brought in fake patients, or fake people signing up for the health care, and they just signed them up. And they did this in 24, 25. 96% of them were accepted, and I think 18 of the 24 are still on subsidies in September of this year. So it's massive fraud. We know this just because the enhanced subsidies created a lot of no premium policies. We went from about 12 to 14 million people on the exchanges before the pandemic to 24 million. And, one group, Paragon estimates, probably about 6 million of those people are phantom. They don't exist yet. Unscrupulous agents signing people up, they get the commission. The insurance companies get the premium, and there are no claims made on these policies. Great for the insurance companies, right? Terrible for the American taxpayer. But it's just rife with fraud. And anybody who wants to extend these enhanced subsidies that have these no premium policies are voting to extend and perpetuate that massive fraud. Probably in the order of about 20 to 30, maybe $35 billion per year worth of fraud.
Unbelievable. And, of course, in that entire scheme and framework that you just laid out, the only entity that has a vested interest in exposing the fraud and stopping the fraud is the federal government, and we know how good they are at that. So this is a major problem. So you've got a hearing today, this afternoon, 2 p.m. It's called Defining Our Healthcare Problem and Principles We Should Follow to Solve It. But I notice you have two witnesses, Nick Stell and Christopher Briggs. They're identified as victims of Obamacare. What does that mean, victims of Obamacare?
Well, we had an earlier meeting, and it was titled Assessing the Damage Done by Obamacare. I come from manufacturing, so there's a process you go through to solve problems. The first step is you have to admit you have one, okay? Democrats aren't admitting they have a problem. We held that hearing, and the Democrats' own witness was a victim, and yet my ranking member, Senator Blumenthal, at the very end of the hearing said, I don't know anybody who's been harmed by Obamacare. His own witness was a mom from Madison. She lost her employer coverage because of Obamacare. couldn't afford the $1,000 plan she signed up for, went to a lower tier plan, $14,000 deductible, had medical bills, had to take out a $18,000 line of credit, a home equity line of credit, and Blumenthal is oblivious to the fact that your own witness is a massive victim of Obamacare. So we've got a dad who's got a daughter with leukemia because he lost the plan that he liked. Remember Obama? You like your plan, keep it. No, you couldn't. He lost access to the cancer center that treated her specific type of leukemia, okay? Then we've got a dad who has a 17-year-old severely autistic child who's being crowded out of home health care by the Medicaid expansion population, the single adults who ought to be working and getting the health care by and large through employers, but they don't work because we pay them not to work, including giving them free health care. So, his severely autistic child is on a 10-year waiting list for home care because he's being crowded out, because states get $9 for every dollar for every dollar they put into Medicaid expansion for those single adults. They get $9 versus we give a state $1.33 for every dollar they invest in a disabled child. So Obamacare has just broken our healthcare system, led to consolidation. There's not one incentive in our current healthcare system to lower costs. Every incentive is to drive costs higher because everybody's getting a cut. So if you're making 10% on something, you'd rather sell, let's say you're a realtor. If you're making whatever, let's say, I'll just say 10%. You'd rather sell $1 million house than a $100,000 house, right? That's true across the spectrum in healthcare. Everybody's getting a cut. Everybody wants to see prices higher, including insurance companies. They're making a percentage off of it. So they'd rather sell a policy that's $30,000 versus one that's $2,000.
Right. Real quickly, are you going to have, is this the first in a series of hearings? For instance, are you going to bring in some of these insurance companies to talk about what you just highlighted?
Yes. So, yeah, this, again, we're, time is not on our side here. We're being forced right away to vote on the Dems. So we'll have a Republican alternative. It doesn't really address the problem. I'm sorry. But, again, what I've been trying to do in these hearings is show my colleagues this is how you solve a problem.
Yeah.
Get everybody to, show the damage, get people to admit, okay, we got a problem. Now properly define the problem. Right now our problem as Republicans is Democrats want to extend these subsidies, okay? We have to describe how destructive that would be. We have to lay that case out. And quite honestly, there is one group of people that I'm sympathetic with that I would extend some subsidies for. These are people making over 4% of poverty line. They never were entitled to a subsidy under Obamacare, but because of the pandemic, they got subsidies, and so a lot of people were enticed to quit their jobs, early retirement during COVID. So these people they're not 65 yet. They don't qualify for Medicare. They quit their jobs where they had health care. Now they're literally facing insurance costs of like $36,000 per year because of Obamacare, because of government. Right. So I feel kind of government caused that. Government ought to fix that. We could do it for a couple $2 billion, pay for it in exchange for taking care of that, getting some reforms to Obamacare. Get Democrats. Yeah. I'm trying to work with Democrats on that. Unfortunately, that's not part of our what we call side-by-side a piece of legislation probably that we'll vote on this week.
Our guest is Senator Ron Johnson, Wisconsin. We're talking about the future debate that's going to happen about Obamacare, and it's going to take some time. There may be one immediate solution here just to get the issue sort of moved along, and then hopefully we'll get into the details. I got to ask, and this is going to sound naive, but when you get car insurance, you get an insurance plan that covers you if something horrible happens and you get into an accident, you pay your deductible, and then the insurance company pays the rest. You don't get insurance that pays for, filling your tank up with gas and changing your oil every 3 months and new brake pads and all of that. It seems like that would be a solution for health care. Why can't a young person just get a catastrophic plan that helps them if they get into an accident or if they get diagnosed, God forbid, but they go out of pocket in the free market for their regular medical appointments and doctor's appointments and just basics? And by the way, if you couple that with health savings accounts, they were actually not going to be going out of pocket at all because those health savings accounts could pay for the regular appointments that they have, and they've got the insurance coverage just in case something horrible happens. What's wrong with that model?
Well, first of all, Larry, that is a solution. It's always been the solution. Our problem, defining the problem, is a third-party payer system. Nobody in America now thinks they really need to pay for health care. They have to buy insurance or they have to pay their taxes and get their health care through Medicare, but nobody thinks they actually have to pay for the service or the product, right? And nobody knows the price as a result. So doctors don't know, nurses don't know, patients don't know. The only people who know the cost of anything are the bean counters. And they're all working for organizations that want to drive the costs up. So no, the solution is consumerism. It works in every other area of our economy. I was just on CNBC yesterday, and they had the CEO of Walmart, who's trying to compete with Amazon, right? This is amazing what has happened in terms of retail. Now, it's not good for brick-and-mortar retail shops, but for consumers, I mean, my wife orders on Amazon. She gets something 2 hours later.
Yeah.
She couldn't take a shower and get in the car and get the product sooner. So that is called competition. They've got millions of customers that they're competing for. In healthcare, we've got a couple consumers. We got health insurance companies, and we have the government. Government is the worst consumer. They just throw money at the problem.
Right.
And the insurance companies, they're on board with raising costs because they're getting a cut of it. So we have to bring consumerism back. That's exactly what HSAs would do. And by the way, Obamacare is catastrophic care. We're just paying a fortune for it. Those types of Obamacare policies, $14,000 deductibles, those were called catastrophic care plans prior to Obamacare. They were dirt cheap. But that is the solution. Buy insurance that insures you against the big stuff, and then not just young people, every patient ought to be buying, you ought to be paying for your doctor visit. You ought to be paying for that procedure. That's what you ought to do. And you probably do it through health savings accounts because people still don't think they have to pay for it. So you got to fuss up their health savings accounts so they've got that money. But by the way, have those health savings accounts transferred to a retirement account so people do everything they can to, not spend that entire health savings account. So it's consumerism. We need consumers in healthcare. We don't have that right now.
All right, great stuff. We're going to be watching you and how this debate goes, and we'll try to keep it as high-minded and intellectual and intelligent and taking the emotion out of it. I can't guarantee for the left if they're going to do the same thing because I like to prey on your fears. But until they clean up all the fraud, they have no standing here morally on the very real issue here that we need to address and we need to fix. Senator Johnson, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll continue the conversation all year long.
Have a Merry Christmas. Take care.
Later this morning on The Chris Plante Show, why are so many Jewish college students in America terrified of revealing their Jewishness on campus? 9 a.m. on WMAL.
So J.D. Vance is very funny, actually, on X. You should all follow him. And he told a really funny story. Here, let me read it real fast. Yesterday at church, the Bible reading started on page 66-67 of the Missal. My 5-year-old went absolutely nuts, repeating 6-7, 6-7, 6-7 like 10 times. And now I think we need to make this narrow exception to the First Amendment and ban these numbers forever.
I totally agree.
Oh, we did the whole 6-7 thing. It's insane. And ever since we talked about it like 3 weeks ago, it's everywhere. I see this thing everywhere. Did you see there was a basketball game where there was a player was at the foul line and they were about to score a free throw, and the moment they scored the free throw, it brought the score up to 67, and they were going nuts. They were going nuts. 6-7,
I love my
6-7.
children I love my children so much, and I love them especially now because they don't do it. They don't do it. I've never once heard.
They're not into the 6-7 thing. They're
no.
In
fact, they think it's kind of silly, which maybe because they're older.
So there's also this weird thing with J.D. Vance where there's a picture of him in a restaurant with his wife, and they're claiming that he was wearing a white undershirt in a fancy restaurant and shouting at her.
Yes,
it's
obviously fake.
It is so fake, and somebody put it out there and said, "Looks like things aren't going so well." Yes. Usha's a liberal. They keep doing this.
They are so desperate.
Usha hates him. Usha's, they did the same thing with Melania too.
Melania, yeah.
Anyway, J.D. Vance retweeted this and said, "I always wear an undershirt when I go out in public, especially to have a fight loudly with my wife. Fight loudly with my wife. I love that." So. Yeah,
this some of this started ramping up when Usha forgot to wear her wedding rings, which she said, J.D. Vance says, she does a lot of dishes. She's like, she gives the kids a lot of baths, which I'm sure some people were like, oh, look, Usha has to do the dishes, right? So.
You just can't win.
You can't win. You can't win with that.
By the way, I totally relate to the wedding ring thing because you know I wear these silicone wedding rings.
Yep.
They're very distinctive, and they design them so you can wear them to the gym because you don't want to wear gold when you're lifting weights. It's soft, it'll damage them and things like that. And you also don't want to. Why are you laughing at me?
It's funny.
It's
Go
true.
ahead.
It's a thing.
Yeah, I know.
You can damage your ring.
I know.
Anyway,
I know.
So Meredith got these for me, and I never take it off. In fact, sadly, it's like I'm supposed to put my gold wedding ring on if we have like an event and I forget to, and so I'm always. She's got the her diamond on, and I'm wearing the silicone thing. But it is a thing. I mean, I get it. I used to forget to put my ring back on after going to work out or washing your hand or whatever. And so, and then a really cool thing is that I got a lot of dates that way too.
Really?
And, no, I'm kidding. The sad thing about Washington, D.C., you get more dates if you're wearing a wedding ring than if you're not. It's 7:56.